You're going. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, so Chair Cooper is on mute, but I'm going to call the meeting to order at 10:19 a.m. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing shaking hands, no. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda for today's agenda, please?
You got Chris
Chris.
and Emery.
So be it resolved that the Honey Harbor Community Advisory Group adopts the agenda dated February 25th, 2022 as circulated. All in favor? Motion carries. Next, we have the minutes of the February 3rd committee meeting. Can I have a mover and seconder, please?
Chris and Scott.
Chris and Scott, thank you. So be it resolved that the Honey Harbor Community Advisory Group adopts the minutes of the meeting of February 3rd, 2022 as circulated. All in favor?
I just got off mute.
Perfect.
There he is.
I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you.
Sometimes it takes a minute to figure it out.
So I think we are on to item 5, which is our pickleball item for the day. I'm going to share my screen. We all know that Rob, and I apologize because I'm going to pronounce your last name incorrectly, Michelle, has been raising funds, but he's unfortunately busy this morning. So we have Michelle and Carrie who are here to speak on his behalf.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle. This is Carrie. Poor Rob, he's spent so much time and hard work, and he is really, really chomping at the bit today to present, but he couldn't be available. So I'm just going to carry on for him. And there is a screen PowerPoint presentation that, there we go. That I will talk about in a minute. First, I just want to say a few things. There has been enormous community interest in this pickleball court idea. And we have had, so far, Rob has commitments for $150,000 already from the community. And we have not even heard back from everybody yet. So the excitement is immense. The awesome thing about having 6 courts is that 24 people can play, and the games only last about 11 or 12 minutes on average. And so another 24 people can mingle and wait and get to know one another, which is really, really lovely and gives people an opportunity to meet their neighbors, meet the locals, and sort of bridge the gap between seasonal cottagers and the local community, the Métis community, and really get to know each other and have a mutual respect that I think maybe we've just never had an opportunity to solidify before. The other nice thing about doing these pickleball courts in the park is that it's come to my understanding that there's going to be a beautiful pavilion built in well-deserved and recognition of the Métis community with new plantings of indigenous trees of black walnut, and then the seagrass and the sage and the different things, the tobacco. And I think that's going to bring such awareness to people of what was actually on the land at one time. And so, you know, if there ever is a need to take down some trees to build these courts, I really think that the new landscaping will be so significant in the replantings that I think it would make up for that. We also are really excited that pickleball in particular, of all the sports that I've ever been around, is just the most inclusive sport. So when we go out and see people here in the States, It's incredible to see. There are grandparents with their grandkids. There are couples. There are young married couples with kids sitting on the side in strollers. Everybody can go and participate. And basically how it works is they put up a little whiteboard and you just get there and they draw squares on this whiteboard and you fill in 4 names. And it can be people you've never met before. And then somebody goes, okay, court 1's free. Jody, Sue, Jen, Peter, you're up. And off they go. And they're total strangers often. And then by the time they've played 1 game together, they're giggling, laughing, and getting to know each other. And the same goes on for the people that are waiting on the sidelines. They're watching someone's dog, or they're watching the baby for the couple that are playing, or they're talking. And it's just incredible to me that within a very short amount of time, that you get to know so many people. And everybody's just so happy because it's fun. And you're getting exercise, but you don't even feel like you're getting exercise. It's just a really, really fun, inclusive activity. The other thing I wanted to touch on before I go through the slide presentation is that the location in particular of doing the pickleball courts in the park seems to be so ideal for so many reasons. And that is a lot of people can boat there, use the docks right there across the public docks, can also use the Delawana docks if those fill up. But it will create traffic to walk to the park. And, on your way home, you'll stop and get some groceries, or you'll get hungry, or you'll do grab some fries at Young's place, or you'll go in and get a coffee at Nadine's, or you'll go get some clothes or shop, go to the liquor store. So we just really think that in addition to it being a great fun activity, it's going to really, really help support the community and really help drive sales. And I think that that's just such a wonderful thing and so warranted for the people that are investing in that town. It's just such an amazing community, and we're so lucky to have it, that if there's a way we can really support sales for everybody in there as well during this process, I think that that's just amazing. I also think that the new playground that's supposed to be going in with the colors changed to the Métis colors, again, will just bring such awareness for the people that are waiting on the side for their turn to play on the courts, children to get to see. I just think it's just such an opportunity to bridge all of these things all at once. Exercise, people, fitness, the community, business, sales, everything. It just seems to be such an incredible opportunity to make a lot of people very, very happy. So with that, I'm going to go through the slide presentation now. So the first thing is just, it shows that people of all ages can play pickleball. And literally, unless you're in a boot cast and you can't walk, you can play pickleball. And I've really, really seen it in the US. Sometimes I'm shocked. Sometimes I see people get on the court and I think, oh my goodness, this person's going to hurt themselves. And oh no, they're out there and they're fantastic and they're beating everybody and they're actually surprisingly great pickleball players. The learning curve for pickleball is very, very quick. It's not like tennis. I think in some ways it's easier than ping pong. It's incredible how quickly you can play pickleball. I think you can have basically a 10 or 15 minute tutorial or orientation from somebody, and then you're playing. So that's really great. If we can go to the next slide, Karen. Can you hear me, Karen? Can we go to the next slide?
What do you guys see right now?
We just see a picture of the couples playing pickleball.
Is it the full PowerPoint? Like,
yeah. You can see the little slides.
okay, give me.
It's not the slideshow, Karen.
Now what you see?
Okay, here we go.
That's the,
That's
Second
okay,
set.
perfect.
Okay. Pickleball. What is pickleball? Yeah, I probably jumped ahead because maybe some of you have never been exposed to pickleball. But it is a racket sport, and it is a mixture between mini tennis and having a giant ping pong ball. Pickleball is a game changer in the way that it makes much more conducive to thriving in a community, let alone in a pandemic. And it's true. It brings so much joy and happiness to people. I was really surprised to see that, you know, you can show up at 8 in the morning to start playing, and before you know it, it's lunchtime and you've been playing for 4 hours and you can't even believe you've been there that long and you've made all these new friends, and it's a lot of fun. I already talked about the buzz in the community. The reason that we're suggesting 6 courts is because it makes so much more sense to have that many players playing at once compared to just 4 people on a tennis court. The games to 11 are pretty quick. How it works is, well, you only get a point when you're on serve, but it's very fast. It's about 11 to 12 minutes for each game, and sometimes 15, but that's for people that are really great at it. I think that takes time. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Karen. Thank you. Social benefits. It's easier to chat courtside than any other sport, and that's very true. While you're playing, because you're in such close proximity to each other, people are encouraging each other, great shot, oh, that's so funny, and they're chatting, and so they're having fun while they're playing. Of course, being outside and fitness is very important for all of us. We've especially realized during COVID how much everybody's missed that and how much we all need it and how much it's an investment in all of us on every level, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And again, it is an easy short-time investment to learn. It's not something that you're going to have to, you know, hire someone to coach people on or spend hours and hours at. It's a very quick learning curve. So that's what makes it so fun and addictive, I think. Next slide, please. What's up? Is it coming up?
Yep, that is it.
Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. Yeah, all levels and genders can play together. So this is very, very true. You can have some great players that might want to sit off and wait for people of their own level to play together, but that really is for more advanced people. Most people can play to any level, and even if you're really advanced, you just play to everybody's level. It's not like tennis where it's a lot harder with tennis. If you're a really good tennis player and you're used to hitting the ball hard, it's sometimes hard to control that, and not always easy for people to just jump in with any level, whereas pickleball is not like that. It's very, very easy and accessible pickleball. The rackets are very inexpensive, and so are the balls. It's great for people's self-esteem. I personally have a best friend that lives in Florida, and she was going through a really difficult time and had gained a lot of weight and was just not in a good place, was really, really suffering from depression. And we got her hooked on pickleball, and she is as happy as a lark now, plays 4 or 5 days a week. She's lost all kinds of weight. She's in an amazing emotional state, and it sounds kind of corny, but she is just so grateful that she says pickleball saved her life, which is kind of crazy, but you do hear that from people. So it's amazing. Next slide. So the Cottages of Honey Harbour and Cog Machine local full-time residents have raised over 100K through fundraising donated to this project. It's actually up to 150 right now as of yesterday that Rob's had commitments for. We figured that the cost for the 6 courts is going to be between 200 and 250K. We're asking the township and the municipality contribute half the amount. The courts will be accessible in all to the public structure with a possibility of an online booking system for certain hours, but that's something that can be discussed later. We're just wondering if the demand will get so great at one point that maybe we say mornings are open and afternoons you can book. We're not sure, but I mean, that's, you know, it's like Field of Dreams. Let's build it and they will come and then we can see what we're dealing with. Used for the school to create an additional activity for the students. Rob and I are very passionate. We love children. Rob was a high school teacher when I met him. And we were both saying that it would be just so fun to take Fridays, say in June, and do a couple of volunteer sessions with the kids and get them started on pickleball in the community. And that would be really fun. The other thing that we talked about, Rob and I, was that we would love to see if we can run some tournaments or round robins. They can be social. I think it would be even fun to have one tournament a summer to use as a fundraiser and let the community decide where the proceeds go to. Maybe it can change every year. Maybe it's the food drive one year. Maybe it's, you know, to raise money for something in the community. I don't know, but I know that at, for example, the YMCA, they do a tournament every year, and every year there's a different recipient, and there's t-shirts and all these different things, and you know, people spend money, play, have fun, and the proceeds go to a great cause each time, and it's a lovely way to give back. The courts would need to be run and maintained by the township. And there's very, very little maintenance. That's what's so nice about it. Basically, we'd need a blower or something to just blow debris off the courts so that they can stay in good condition. Next slide, please. So this is basically what most courts look like. So there's a high fence around the perimeter that is 6 feet tall, usually, or 8, but I think Rob said 6. And then you have your pickleball nets in the center. It's really nice. You also have, you'll see a fence through the middle of those courts separating them. And the reason for that is that so that your ball doesn't go all the way to the back court if somebody misses. So it's just sort of like a little catchment area. Again, it's very social. And so what you'll find is people will start chatting and laughing with the court beside them. And if somebody's ball comes over too much, they start harassing each other, giggling, laughing, chirping each other. And before you know it, you've gotten to know so many people. So it's a pretty straightforward layout. This is how it's done a lot in the US. And the court surface is very, very important because it's a safe surface. It has a little bit of grit to it. Helps people from falling and not hurting themselves, which is obviously ideal. So that gives you an idea of what it looks like. It's also, interestingly enough, you know, you can put 6 courts in the space that one large tennis court would take. So it's just incredible to think you could have 24 people playing in the same structure that normally 4 people or 2 people are using. Next slide. Rob put this picture in because it's interesting to see that particularly in the States, because it's taken off. Well, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. I shouldn't say in the States, because it's grown at over 20% worldwide. And so that's incredible. And what's really interesting is that children are now onto it and loving it. Loving, loving, loving. So that's fun too, to go out, and sometimes we see parents with their kids playing with all the adults. And again, it just bridges another gap in the community for everybody. So,
Can I just add one thing?
mhm.
Which Rob told me, probably told you. It's important to get quotes from actual court
Right.
resurface companies or surface companies, because it can't just be like a cement, whatever. It has to be done properly just to be safe. So I think he wanted that to be
Yeah,
known as well, not to just get a quote from a general contractor, but to make sure it's a court company.
yes, that's absolutely very important. They also know how to build the structure in a way that it absorbs impact, and it makes it a lot easier on our bodies so that we can play this well into our 80s, 90s. Who knows how lucky we'll be. So, does anybody have any questions for me or Carrie?
I do.
Yeah.
So where's the dollar amount coming from then, the 200 to 250K? Just you made the comment about getting quotes. So where did you come up with that estimate from?
So we, interestingly enough, have done some research because we were serious about putting a court even at our cottage. And we know other people that have put in some courts, and we've actually had 2 or 3 contractors out to our cottage. And the problem with our place is, the topography, we can't blast, and there'd be so much fill. And so we were looking at around 3 probably to do our place, which was crazy. And then we just started inquiring and talking to other people that have put in courts. And Rob knows a lot of the sport court people from going through the process when we were doing and investigating for ourselves. And also from finding out the difference between the people that build tennis courts versus pickleball courts, what are the different surfaces and how does it all work? And so he's done a lot of research. Mostly it all started from a personal interest. And so I think he's getting those figures. And also he knows of a township. I can't remember, Jen, if you might recall, but there's a township up north somewhere that just put in a bunch of pickleball courts. And I think they paid in the 200 mark. So he was also talking to that city councillor and about that. So he got that quote from somebody who had just built courts. And I can't remember if it was Sudbury or somewhere north anyway.
Ferris.
Pardon me?
It was East Ferris.
Okay, there you go. I couldn't remember the location. So I think that they had done it properly, had used the right, qualified people to build it. And I think that they came in around the 200 mark. But that might have been for 4 courts, not 6. So he's probably saying 250 if we're putting in 6. The other thing is he was originally just going to raise 100,000, but now as the interest has just been so immense, he's already at 150. Yes, Anne-Marie?
Hi,
Hi.
girls. How are you guys doing?
Great.
That kind of raises the question I had. Why does it have to be 6? Why is that the magic number and it couldn't be 4? Just thinking
Well,
about
it
the space
makes
and-
because it fits in that space, Anne-Marie. So you've got that rectangular space that size anyway. So you might as well maximize how many you can get in for that space.
So 6 courts are going to fit into the area we already have paved over. Is that right?
Okay, no.
No.
Thank
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, is it okay if I go ahead? Brad's going to probably pop in. What we have already committed to is the pavilion, and so if we're looking at the original footprint, there's no way that the pavilion and 6 courts would match what was already existing. But I think the conversation is about if you could sort of visualize the pavilion and then some greenery and obvious boardwalk between the pavilion, and then right after that would be the courts. And so I was out there yesterday, Michelle's right. Some trees would have to come down in order to be able to make this work with the dimensions that they have. But before we get too far into the weeds of whether or not we can make it fit, or what way the courts are going to go, whether it's this way or this way, it's pretty close to a square. We're here today to talk to the advisory group about the concept, and if you are okay with staff moving forward with this, first to council on the 14th of March to endorse your recommendations, and then beyond that, Brad would have to go with his team and measure out what the layout would look like, work with our already existing structural designs for the pavilion, and then he would have to issue an RFP. And you're right, Michelle, it would be very important, and Carrie, that we specify in the RFP that we are looking for specific court materials and designs, so that you in the end get what you're looking for. And we hear you loud and clear on that. It's just organizing the footprint, which we would do after you endorse here at the advisory level, and then we move to council. The 50% funding is very attractive for sure. It certainly shows community impact and support for council to understand that this is something that is coming into the community and is a priority. Municipally, we're delighted that this has come forward, because it's a great community capacity builder, which is what we always hope for, as your public servants, is to do what you want us to do. And having you provide 50% funding is certainly very attractive. I think what we have to do is be a little bit nimble in terms of what that end amount for the 50% funding ends up being, giving sort of like a broad brushstroke range for council to say we're here to here. That way, when the RFP comes back, it's no surprise to anybody where it falls in, and we could ultimately choose a contractor that would fall within that range and provide the right material to provide the courts that you're looking for, including fencing and that kind of stuff. So just to put it in perspective, don't get too caught up in the where yet, just because we need to make sure that we are able to, at the very least, receive your endorsement to move this forward. I don't think, and final comments, I don't think that this will in any way impede what the Métis Council is hoping to do for ceremonial purposes, as well as their potential statues and cenotaphs and plantings. This would actually be a lovely compliment. And yesterday we were out with the DPAVE people from Severn Sound Environmental Association, and they're excited about this as well. So just at this level, Mr. Chair, we're really looking to find out whether or not it's endorsable.
Jennifer, so if we go out for an RFQ, it's not a fait accompli that we're going ahead. We are going to get a chance to see what it's going to look like and what it's going to impact before the RFQ is approved. Or if we give we all think it's a great idea, but is it just going to steamroll through and we won't have anything else to say after it?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't think so. I think in this particular case, because it's a big community project, it's really important for staff to make sure that the community are engaged. It would probably require a special community advisory group meeting like today, but if it's, we would think that that's very important. We know that that's a bit of an imposition on your time, but this is a really interesting project that's come forward. And if the goal of trying to do this at the same time that we're participating in construction already would probably be a cost saver in general. So we do want to try to move this forward as quickly as we can. And so to answer your question, we would come back to you with probably what we have found in the RFP process before we go to a final bidder. Brad, do you want to jump in on that piece, just because there's some logistics of that one?
Sure, thank you. Right now, through the chair, we don't have a very good layout of exactly how much space this would take up. Just from doing some rough calculations, it looks like we'd have to take out probably a quarter to half an acre of trees to the east of the current rink pad, and then some of the individual trees that are north of the rink pad as well to accommodate it. It may be a little bigger than that when we start to look at fitting in enough parking for people who are coming. So that's just a manage expectations kind of thing. Until we get a proper survey and layout, we won't know exactly how much. As far as the RFP is concerned, like, it would be at the direction of council whether it came back to the CAG or not. Typically they don't, and if it's budgeted, they often don't go to council. Even this isn't a budgeted item, so it has to go right now to get the township's portion of funding. And at that time, council may request that the results of the RFP come back to them and or the CAG. But that is not a typical process.
Mr. Chair, what we can do is we can add that in as an option as well. Like if it is important for the advisory group to take a look at it after the RFP, assuming it goes to council and assuming that we've taken money out of reserves, et cetera, and that we can make that request in our report to council. Also, just to manage expectations, there is a big transformer and light stanchion in the middle of the park, which would definitely have to be relocated. And that also is a cost that we would consider. I'm not too worried, and I know this is the sustainability piece of me. I'm not too worried about taking down a portion of the trees to be able to fit this, because I agree with what Michelle mentioned, and that's about the new plantings that would come in. It would definitely be indicative of us to be able to plant what the Métis community wanted. So I'm okay with that. That's not too much of a concern, but just to add one little piece, when I was out there yesterday, there is a big transformer there. We do need to relocate as well.
Just to get back to my question, can I just ask, so does it make
Yes.
a big difference if we go from 6 courts to 4 courts? If the space shows us that that works better, like, does that not work then for your round robins, or you know
What we found here, Anne-Marie, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, but there are facilities here that have 100 courts, 100, and they're full every day. They are completely full. And so what we think is going to happen is that these 6 courts are going to be so utilized. People from Port 7 are going to drive into our town. People from, just across the river, people are going to come and use these courts, not just our locals, not just our seasonal people. There is a huge attraction for this sport. So what we're saying is, from what we've seen, even just the time that I've been down south, the Y put in 9 new pickleball courts last year. And when they put these pickleball courts in, it was like crickets. Nobody came. And I was playing tennis beside, and I watched, and I wasn't playing pickleball at the time. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Well, now, 6 months later, they've had to break it up into 2 groups, advanced on Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You have to sign up 2 different sessions, which one you want to come to. Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays are beginners. It's packed all the time, Anne-Marie. Like, it is crazy. So what we're afraid is you're going to go to all this expense and all this inventory, or all this expense and all this effort, and then realize that we underbuilt something that we could have done a bit of a better job. And so that's the reason, is this thing is like a fast moving virus. It's crazy how many people get into it. And then when they're into it, they're playing every day. So that's the reason. I mean, obviously it'd be lovely to put in more courts one day, but I think if you're looking at the amount of space and what you can fit into that diagram that Rob's shown and the square footage there, it was maximizing that space to the best of our ability, so we don't have any regrets, and get as many people involved as we can.
Understand that. I guess from our perspective, I mean, this was kind of where we started with the park redevelopment. There was talk of a lot of bus parking being needed for biosphere and tours and different. So I just want to be sure there's enough room for, all the intended uses without changing the beauty of the bush that's around it too much, so it doesn't start to just look like a big green field. So that's one of my concerns.
Well, a lot of what they do down here is they do plantings around the fencing as well. And again, if that's something that's cost prohibitive to do right away, maybe that's one of the fundraisers we do every summer, is maybe we do let's raise money and plant 2 more trees to hide that fence. And then the next year plant 10 more and 12 more and 40 more and whatever. And just have that be part of the overall growth of it all, instead of just thinking about the short term. And I think that's sort of, in my mind, would be the goal for anything, is to think long-term usage. And how do I agree. I mean, I do interior design for a living. I'm all about beautifying spaces. But I also am working with any of my clients, say, let's do this in tiers. And that's what makes the most sense. You do plan A, and then when that's executed, plan B, and so forth and so on. Not many people can afford to do everything they want to do on their wish list all at once.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything more, Anne Marie?
Well, that was my only thought. I'm all for it. I mean, obviously, I think Mitch knows that we're all for it. It's a great idea. I just want to be sure that everything fits in a really nice and orderly fashion, including, the talk of the bus parking that might be coming in the future. So just want to make sure we have a good plan in advance of where it's all going to be, and not have to bulldoze too much of the natural beauty.
The other question I have, does anyone else have anything to ask? Ladies?
I've got a question.
Mr.
Go
Chair,
ahead,
Scott,
Scott.
you might not be able to see him.
Okay, yes, Scott, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for the RFP process, I think the process that would make the most sense is, like, you guys take this to council, make sure you get council's blessing, and then whenever we get a design or a layout, then it would come back to the committee and come back to Rob and Michelle and everybody that's involved to make sure that we all agree with the design and the layout before it goes to RFP. I feel like if it goes to council and then goes immediately for RFP, then no one has any time to comment or, change the design if there's any issues. So that would be one comment, maybe, if that's able to be done. And then my second part is, what is the dimension of 6 courts? Maybe I missed that in the slide, but what are the dimensions?
In the slide, Karen, can you pick up?
It's 120 feet by 108 feet.
There you go.
Okay. And Brad, where are we thinking that the court is going to go? Is it going to go behind the rink, the current rink, or beside it on the road?
It's a question for this group, I think. I saw the pavilion either being at the north end and the pickleball courts to the south of it, or it could be the opposite as well. In my small world, I would have the pavilion closer to the road, but that's something that I think would be useful to be discussed here.
Did I just hear somebody talk about parking?
Yeah, Curtis is asking about parking.
Oh,
Speaker, yeah.
Curtis, the secret CAG member.
Yeah.
That all needs to be designed, and I totally agree with you, Scott, that in this particular case, it might be wise to come back. So if it, because of time, I don't want to rush it. Absolutely. And I know Michelle and Rob and Carrie, you'd love to have this up and running this year. That may not happen. And so we need to certainly manage that expectation. I think it's sort of heading on the towards of 99% not happening. However, we can aim for 2023 because we'll have a construction season. So what we can do is we can move forward to council on March 14th. And then we can talk with our present contractor about the layout. We can also work with perhaps laying out the entire park so that we have the elements that we have already agreed to, which is the playground, the pavilion, and the Métis Council's needs with respect to their interest in having a cenotaph and a pavilion, which there's plenty of room. We have not discussed financially how we are going to manage the parking, and we have not got any approval to have a discussion about this particular element with respect to the pickleball. So we have moved forward expeditiously because our funder demanded that we did, and that is very complete in that we have a contractor for the pavilion piece and the playground. But what we can do is we can go back and then come back to the CAG and perhaps even bring forward a couple of ideas. Brad's thinking about putting the pavilions south of the courts, and I'm thinking the opposite way. I think that if we have the pavilion stuck in the back, we can save those trees that are back there and then be able to widen a pickleball court with a breezeway and a walkway with some sweetgrass plantings and indigenous plantings there. And that would certainly give the area to the side where the lily pond is a great circular location for the Métis community. They have been on site with us, so they're open to anything. As I mentioned, there's a transformer and some big trees that need to come down. So, for our carbon footprint, we need to think about how we're going to manage that greenhouse gas loss. with new plantings. And so there's lots of moving parts. I'm hearing you, Scott and Curtis, that this is something that needs to come back to the CAG, and I'm completely in support of putting that in our resolution for March.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like delay anything or slow it down. I'm super excited about the project. I just think for everyone involved, it would be great for us to have a layout. I think that's the most important part, is get all of it laid out so that we can all see where is the pickleball court going, where is the arena going, where is the Métis stuff going, and then we can have a good discussion on like, oh yes, this makes a lot of sense, or no, maybe we move it around a little bit. I think we want all of that. We just need to make sure we put it right.
Is it possible? And again, I don't. Forgive my ignorance, because I don't know the processes of what everybody's hard work and what you all go through trying to get things to move forward. But is it possible to still put this forward to that meeting and then have a meeting right after in terms of planning, and still be able to proceed? Or is that really not, if that's not feasible in any way, then I completely understand. But from a building perspective, I don't understand why adding one more meeting and getting everybody's feedback. I mean, potentially everybody could be pleased with the what was presented and love it. And then what are we waiting for?
So,
excuse me, Jennifer, can I interrupt for a moment? I don't think there's any problem having a CAG meeting anytime.
Right.
And I think there's a consensus around the table that the CAG feels excited about this. So, but being excited about it and having Brad or you decide where it goes and have no other input from the CAG, I think is not quite proper. So what we should do is, there's, where are the people going to sit while they're waiting? Are we going to put bleachers in? I think there's a few questions that we should ask, and I think I'd be prepared if the committee is that, yes, we're gung ho about it, but we'd like to be involved. The community would like to be involved of where it's going to go, and we'd like to see some type of it doesn't need to be an engineering drawing, but a drawing of what it's going to look like.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. And I honestly think that, and how they do it here is that they just have a couple benches. You'll find that most people don't sit. They have their little pickleball bags, have little, what do you call those? Carabiners, and they hang their pickleball bags on the fence. And then there are a couple of benches, just some side benches. Some of the more elderly people that come out to play, they'll play one or two and then they sit for one or two. But that is not usually the case. You will find most people are standing and chatting while they're waiting to go back on. They're all like chatting, or they're watching the people that are on the courts playing and sort of cheering for other people and encouraging other people. It's kind of funny. When I first went out there, I wasn't used to people watching me play any sports, and people would just like hang on the side of the fence and watch and cheer and make comments. And it's a little unnerving at first, but then you realize everybody's just having such a good time. But they don't have any bleachers, and they really don't have a lot of seating. There's just a couple of benches, and I find most of the time I see them, they're empty.
Okay.
Karen wants to talk, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
No, Mr. Chair, Karen wants to talk.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I know you're on your phone and it's hard to see. If I may, Chair Cooper, I would like to read, based off today's conversations, slightly amended version. I don't know if you've read the recommendations that I sent you this morning. But if you may, I would like to read the draft resolution. I think perhaps it's capturing the will of the committee, if that's okay with you, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, so be it resolved that the Honey Harbour Community Advisory Group recommends to council to include 6 professional-sized pickleball courts as part of the rehabilitation project at Honey Harbour Park, and that the Honey Harbour CAG recommends to council to accept the donation in the amount of $150,000 in brackets 50% funding as raised by Mr. Rob Krisminick, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, for pickleball courts at the Honey Harbour Park, and that the Honey Harbour CAG recommends to council the design proposed layouts for the Honey Harbour Park, including the pickleball courts, be brought back to the Honey Harbour Community Advisory Group for review and comments.
Does any of the CAG members have anything to say about that resolution?
It's Chris.
Yes, Chris, go ahead.
No, I think that captures it well. I think, listening to Emery and Scott, and I know my feelings as well, is I would love to see a layout and what this is going to look like. I mean, we have an RFP for a pavilion and a concrete pad. We have a separate RFP for the park, and now there's going to be a third RFP for this, and I'd like to see how they all come together. It sounds like that's kind of the what everybody would like to see. The resolution actually calling out the dollar amounts when we don't have any quotes in front of us, is that just from a process perspective? I mean, it sounds like what Michelle's saying is when this presentation was built, they had 100,000, now they have 150. I mean, what if they had more? What if the cost is less than 300,000? Does having the dollar amounts in the resolution cause any problems in the future?
Or can we word it that there has been 100,000 basically committed, and there will likely be more, and I'm sure there's going to be more because I know that they've asked the Honey Harbour Association for money, and the Honey Harbour Association is waiting to see what it's going to look like. But most of the members or the directors are quite gung-ho about it. So there's other monies going to come in. So why, I think the resolution should say, so far, the community has committed to 150,000, but we expect more. And I think that'd be quite not too, there's a word for it, sorry, optimistic, because I think there is more money coming in locally, which is great. Maybe we can plant some half decent oak trees or maple trees that are 6 inches in diameter on this project that we're taking down some other tree.
I know somebody that really loves to plant trees, Bill.
I know.
Mr. Chair.
I plant 15 a year.
Jennifer's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Jennifer. I can't see you, but go ahead.
This little sidebar, Karen, Rob might jump in on this call. He apparently just lost his match. So so he may join us. You might see him in the Zoom call, but we need to remember that this is an unbudgeted item. And so when we come forward to council, we're going to have a really high threshold for finances, because immediately we need to do some design, and that will require us to do a site plan, and to do a site plan costs money. So, and a site plan makes sense because we need to figure out what we're doing here in terms of layout, and looking at a legitimate survey that we already have, and be able to get that done. And it may slow down a little bit, but it's right, because if we have a couple of layouts that we can bring forward to you in the very near future that are designed by professional designers, then we'll be able to come back to you with some this or this. And I think coming down to 2 options and having the ability to say that this is where we want to go will give Brad some leeway to be able to get some design done, and that costs money. So if we're in, and we're in for 50% funding for that as well, because that's part of the process.
Mm-hmm. So if I may, based off that, what I did was I took the amount out of the directional clause and put it into a whereas clause at the beginning. So it now reads, whereas a donation in the amount to date of 150,000 at 50% funding has been raised by Mr. Rob Krisminick. I'm so sorry, I'm butchering this. And
Karen, just think of a man with an itch.
Yeah.
Krisminick? Am I saying Krisminick? Okay, perfect.
When I met Rob, that's how I had to remember his name. I was like, man has an itch. Okay, Chris Mann.
Got it. That's
All right.
perfect. Thank you.
I'm trying to get that picture out of my head.
Well, it worked, doesn't it?
Hold on. I'm going to start over. Hold on. Whereas a donation in the amount to date of 150,000 and 50% funding has been raised by Mr. Rob Kuzmanic and community members for the installation for pickleball courts at the Honey Harbour Park. And whereas the sport of pickleball is growing in popularity, be it resolved that the Honey Harbour CAG recommends to council to include 6 professional sized pickleball courts, I didn't ask there, sorry, as part of the rehabilitation project at Honey Harbour Park, and that the Honey Harbour CAG recommends to council to accept the donation as raised by Mr. Rob Kuzmanic and community members for pickleball courts at the Honey Harbour Park, and that the Honey Harbour CAG recommends to council the design proposed layouts for the Honey Harbour Park, including the pickleball courts, be brought back to the Honey Harbour Community Advisory Group for review and comments. Does that capture? Seeing thumbs up, perfect.
Any comments from the KIG members?
I just want to add, I think this is very exciting, and I think this is one of the most sort of positive CAG calls we've had. So just thanks to everyone involved.
I agree. I think this could drive a second takeout vending machine potentially in Honey Harbour, so that Scott and I have more options.
Thai food, Chris. I'm thinking Thai food.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Maybe a food truck.
That's right. So can we have someone to make a
mover and a seconder?
a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move.
So Anne Marie. And
Who's the
Scott.
second?
I have Anne Marie and Scott, chair.
Perfect. Show of hands that everybody agrees. Can you see everybody's hands?
I can see enough votes to count that as the motion passes, yes.
Curtis is raising his hand on the phone.
Is he?
Fabulous.
Karen, is Rob in the waiting room?
Sorry, I just wanted to thank everybody for allowing us to take up your time and present this, and it really means a lot. So appreciate it.
On the contrary, we're thanking you. It's always a dream that a community comes together like this and brings funding and opportunities to the municipalities to be able to work with assets that are ultimately public. So we're very thankful. And I was hoping that Rob was going to jump in on the call so that we could thank him for his behind the scenes efforts already. So please pass along to him how thankful we are that he's working and continuing to work with us. And as Scott said, this is super exciting.
I will. Thank you.
I believe that that everybody that has been contacted and talked about through Rob has he's generated a lot of interest, and that there will be a lot more interest over the next month or so. So we'll raise more money.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe there'll be a honeybee pickleball tournament.
There you go.
That might be a realistic timeline. We'll see.
I think it's important that we get, I assure you, you can call a meeting of CAG anytime, and except for today, I completely forgot about it and I apologize.
That's okay.
But
I know how to find you.
We are ready to have a meeting. I speak for the whole committee.
Okay, that's great. So hopefully it can keep things moving along in a great
Quickly.
possibility of having things move forward this summer. That's something to dream about. So,
Mr. Chair, can we just wait 1 second? Rob is going to try to jump in on the call, and it would be nice just to put a face to the name for the advisory group. I do want to just identify, just so that we are clear, the next step is March 14th, when staff go to council to defend a report and the resolutions that the advisory group has come forward to today. We have already kind of scribed the report already, so we are in a good position to get it on the agenda. Your worship, do you think it's a good idea that somebody comes and delegates on the March 14th meeting in open forum or as a delegation?
If you like, I mean, the delegation will be a brief thing, but if you want to make a sales pitch, it's almost as if the Chrismanich family are enthusiastic about this. So
Yeah.
why
Hopefully
not?
they're not pickleballing on the 14th of March, but if it, Karen, can we work with the Kuzmanich to get them to be on a delegation? It's just one more time. I don't know if you may need to go through the slides again. It would always be helpful, but there's more than just the mayor at that meeting. And with the support from the advisory group, the enthusiasm of staff, and some behind the scenes work that Brad's already doing on the survey, that we can definitely keep this moving.
I love it.
There he is. So no face to the name, but there is there's the fundraiser, Rob Kuzmanich.
Yeah, I just lost my last match, the number 2 person. It was so fun, but thanks so much for all your time, guys.
And Rob and I will totally be available March 14th to present. If that's something that you feel would be great, we would be more than happy to
Always
make
a good idea. It's always a good idea.
for sure.
Yeah. Is the worship the only council member on our Zoom meeting today, or is the other councilors involved?
Brian attended shortly. There was also a planning committee meeting happening at the same time. So
Oh, okay. No problem.
So that therefore Al wasn't able to attend this.
Right.
And I suspect when Brian dropped in, it was probably because the planning committee was finished, because it was going to be a brief meeting.
Right. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thank you.
Can we have
Motion,
we have a
Karen?
motion? Can we have a motion to adjourn our meeting? I can't see anybody.
I have
Chris, that hands up.
Scott and
Scott.
Chris.
Okay, all in favor of that?
Yep. Here you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
For a great
Thanks,
meeting.
everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good 11:16.
Bye, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Hmm.
Bye.